animal rights. I came across the video of a lady who calls herself the president of dog lovers, I think in Lagos or in Nigeria. She was livid in the video. She was angry, she was mad at Hilda. Now, Hilda is the Nigerian lady who tried to break the Guinness Book of Records for the longest cooking hours, which she did for 100 hours, I can recall. And Hilda, in the video, she was with someone called Enola, I guess. And then she asked him to eat dog meat. So that means Hilda killed a dog, probably boiled it, probably fried it, garnished it, and then served it, which didn't go well with the president of dog lovers. In fact, in the video by that president of dog lovers, she brought her own puppy and then she asked Hilda that, Hilda, are you now saying you've eaten my son? Because according to her, she is a dog's mother. And if anyone knows about dogs, of course, dogs have been around humans for centuries, just as we have some other animals as well that have actually served different purposes, especially donkeys and camels and horses as well. All right, so now this lady was angry. If Hilda had cooked a cow that is being revered by Hindus, that some even bow to eat. Now, Hilda is not going to be annoyed. The so-called president of dog lovers. Now, she's not going to be annoyed. But oh, a dog is a pet. A dog is man's best friend. And those are the basis for this woman not wanting Hilda to eat dog meat. And then not just that, in the United States we have the dog and cat meat trade prohibition of 2018, which is a bipartisan bill that outlaws the slaughter and sale of cats and dog meat in the United States. So why is that? There is something very interesting that I've taken a look at, and that is the Universal Declaration on Animal Welfare. Don't be mistaken. The Universal Declaration on Animal Welfare is not or does not reflect the thought processes of some animal rights activists that try to bring animals to the status of humans. When you go into that document, that Universal Declaration, what it was just basically saying is we need to take care of animals, we need to be concerned about their welfare for different reasons. And one of the most important reasons is number one. Now, the way animals are treated, how we are concerned about their welfare actually really does matter as when it comes into our own safety, our own health as well. For example, you have in like India, I think about 55,000 people, if I'm right, get infected by rabies every year, which is spread by dogs. And then, so if you have pets, animals around you that are not well fed, that don't have access, maybe to good, maybe food or like, water or something like that, and then to diseases, they can easily spread this amongst human beings, which here now, this type of right, is very, very logical and consistent, with reason. And of course, we don't want some animals, to go extinct. And one thing again is that you just don't want to be cruel. And this is there in Islam. Islam does not support cruelty to animals. That is why you cannot set animals to fight against each other. You cannot kill animals in in a very cruel manner, because according to this Universal Declaration on animal welfare, even the way you treat animals, actually just have this overlap as to even how your everyday character or attitude gets to be. That is that. So now on the issue of the Guinness World Record and how Hilda's video might not appeal to the sentiments of the West. Now I am a Muslim. I do not eat pork. I do not eat dog meat. Okay, but I am concerned regarding the standards that we set. Does a thing become a standard if it is accepted or prohibited in a certain region? Now, we look at the West. The West now seems to be at the forefront of asking people to respect different cultures, accepting diversity, embracing diversity, and then our differences as well. But then, the parts of the world where Hilda is from, eating dog meat is not absurd, it is not ridiculous, it is embraced, it is welcomed. There is nothing wrong with eating dog meat in the part of the world where Hilda is coming from. That is even a tribe. But then, even in Nigeria, I don't think the Nigeria where she's from, I don't think there's any law that prohibits, eating dog meat. And then, if eating dog meat is going to, maybe, just hypothetically speaking now, if eating dogs will have some negative effect on Hilda's record that she tried to break. So what happens to respecting people's cultures? What happens to respecting people's, traditions, and of course embracing our diversity? Because even the bill that I mentioned of the dog and cat meat prohibition of 2018 in the US, it's actually had exceptions for Native Americans who want to use those animals for their religious ceremonies to say. Now, animals and animal rights. Like I mentioned earlier, as far as Islam is concerned, there are rights of animals in Islam. But Islam, as much as we are not allowed to be cruel to animals, as much as it is encouraged for Muslims to be nice towards animals, you see birds, you put water there for them, let them drink, just any thirsty animal. It is a very rewarding act. We call it a sunnah to do that. But then Islam does not try to now elevate, these animals into human standards or human level. Like this woman who calls herself the president of dog lovers, displayed. She said Hilda had eaten her son. No, Hilda cooked a dog. Hilda did not eat a human being. She did not kill a human being. And that dog is not your son, because even your own dog's son is with you at home. And this is the part where these animal rights activists now get to have these very absurd ideas and thought processes to say. There have been lots of talk when it comes to animal rights. There are really no, standard disagreements like that. There are some who have this idea about animal rights, and then there's others who have other ideas about animal rights. So when we talk about the rights of animals, are animals granted the rights of humans, or are we giving them rights that are relative to them? There have been questions as to, do animals feel the same way we feel? But it is quite agreed and scientifically proven that animals also feel pain, they feel hunger, they feel fear. They do those things, right? Okay. But then, when we now start to look at animal rights, we have people who don't want us to kill animals. So for example, in the context of dog, which I've mentioned earlier. So if dogs are not meant to be killed because dogs are man's best friend, okay, then cats too forbidden in the US but not everywhere. And then we eat people's gods. Like some Hindus, we eat their gods, we eat their deity. We have people eat cows, they eat cow meat. So what happens? What happens? So if Indians are the ones, in control, are the forefront of tech and all this and that, and what finance, maybe their currency controls the world. So that means the moment India now, makes what's it called? Eating cow meat forbidden. So that means anyone who does it in any other part of the world, they are now what? Criminals? I don't think so. Now, I have always loved Malum say and then Malum prohibitum, yet the former meaning some actions, okay, that are inherently or naturally wrong, but maybe something like murder, maybe something like rape. You most likely might not need a government to tell you that murder is wrong, or unjust murder, is wrong. And maybe something like even rape, or like maybe stealing in some context. And then the latter prohibitum, which would mean that those things, those actions that are prohibited by the government, either to maintain order in society or for some other reasons. For example, if the government says don't drive at this speed limit, it is not because driving at such speed limit is in itself and of itself wrong. It is because the government has prohibited that for reasons that they have to do with the society, but they are not inherently wrong, or you would say right. It's like homosexuality, for example. Now the USA has allowed homosexuality, but that it is allowed according to some people, well, like me, does not mean that the fact that it is allowed does not necessarily make it inherently right. Because if everyone was homosexual, we would even give birth to the next homosexual. Now that is very interesting, right? So now, coming back to this animal rights activist, so there are questions. So what type of rights do we give to animals, and what type of rights do we not give to animals? And then let's take, for example, if now we listen to animal rights activists to say, and then they say don't eat dog, don't kill dog, don't do anything. But okay, I am also an animal rights activist, and my own argument is that even the animals, the dogs that we keep them against their own will. Did we seek the consent of these animals before we start to have them as our pets? People use animals, dogs to say, they use them for security purposes. We have the military making use of dogs. Do these dogs, do they receive salaries? Do these dogs receive salaries? When you as a dog rights activist, when you go there, you take a dog, you call the dog your son, but you train the dog, you control the dog. Does the dog have free will? Because when the law is saying they don't want to allow bestiality, it is because the animals cannot seek consent. So now, if you say you're an animal rights activist, now that is where the paradox comes in. Now you say dogs or animals should not be killed, for example, but the ones you take as pets, do you even respect their own rights to their own freedom? You chain them, you guide them, you lead them, you dictate when they eat, what to eat, and even teach them even how they should eat as well. So are you not also violating these animals? At the end of the day, we continue to see that really we cannot necessarily have standards as far as animal rights are concerned, especially within the context of secularism. So what really does make sense to me is the Islamic position on this animal rights. Animals are not humans, but then they have life, and then they should get rights and the respect that is relative to them. You don't set animals to fight against each other. You are not cruel to animals because number one, they can feel that fear, number one, and then of course the way you treat animals, or if you are cruel to, let's say, even animals to say, then most likely you are going to be cruel to other humans as well. But animals, dogs, cats, rats, fishes, all those and all that, they are not a part of the human community, and then they are not necessarily getting the rights that we would give a human being. And then one thing is this: if it is up to us humans to grant these animals this right, for example, do they even recognize these rights as well? So if I make a rule that so must not be done to an animal, does the animal itself recognize my own right to life? So if it sees me, will it not try to kill me, to devour me? Because when we mention rights and then within the human community, when I say this is your right, I know that there are things in place for the next human being to respect my own right as well. So what type of rights are we setting when these rights are not even mutual? Animals are to be respected. We have to, don't be cruel to them, like I've mentioned. But you cannot start to call animals, your baby, or start to romanticize, all this and try to say, or suggest that they are to be treated the same way like humans. Not treating animals the same way like human beings does not necessarily mean you are being cruel. And then again, whether it's for our clothes, whether it is for our food, exactly for our food, we need to have these animals, to kill them, and then we eat them. So if you think in the name of animal activism, these animals should not be eaten, they should not be killed for consumption, and then you are at the same time saying that we must protect, we must give them rights. Why do we have to give these animals rights? Can't they just give themselves these rights, or just come into mutual agreement as to what rights we really want to give to each other? So that still shows the natural setting or the natural context of this our universe, that the human beings are quite more superior to these animals, and then they serve a purpose. But then reasonable people might disagree that by the time we start to look at this context of hierarchy, that humans are higher and then the lower animals can be eaten, where we probably might be setting a path to also allow some set of humans to feel superior, and then to find a justification to kill other humans. But to answer this, I really quite love the thought of Pico della Mirandola in his oration on the dignity of man, where he kind of differentiated between what makes the human being special compared to these animals. Now we have free will, one, we can reason, and that is why we can see that even though humans are like my size or some are bigger, we can tame elephants, we can tame lions, we can tame dogs, have different breeds, have different species, all this and the other. So there is something really different about the human being. So the next argument that might come to play would be, well, if we say we have free, we have reason, and all that, how about people who have, let's say, maybe some advanced mental issues, or people who are just are disabled, and that they may not be reasoning like other people, So what exactly do we do to them? So these are very interesting philosophical and moral arguments that can always be discussed, and people, not even in the religious sense of it, even in the philosophical sense of it, just in the mainstream sense of it, there are really no disagreement as to what constitutes or what should constitute the rights of animals or not. So in this video, what I've tried to look at is that as far as Hilda's culture is concerned, you can eat a dog. and then eating that dog outside of religion, because in my I won't eat a dog, I won't eat pork, for example. So now, but in Hilda's culture, it is okay to eat a dog. So people who are also secular minded, I do not think they have a justification to get mad that someone sees an animal, kills an animal, and eats the animal. Whether it's a dog, a chicken, a cat, a rat, or whatever it is. So far one, they have not infringed on the life of others, and then or the life or right of other human beings, and then of course there's no prohibition against it in their place, where they are, where they live, where they are from. So what standards are we setting, and then what exactly is our definition of respecting people's cultures? And then, because it is under this respect of cultures and choices that we also have homosexuality, I as a Muslim would argue that some rights and choices are not to be respected. If someone wants to be trans, I don't think such rights should be respected. If someone wants to will their properties to a cat or to a dog, to a horse, those rights I do not think they should be respected. And Islam is the basis for this my argument, which is the basis of my moral foundation. So these topics are going to be continuously discussed horizontal, but then when it comes to animals, animals should be respected. Don't kill them in cruel manners, but they serve purposes. And human beings have so much more to lose when we say we are nice up to the point of not killing animals. So I would like you, if you want, go through the Universal Declaration on animal welfare, and that really to me makes a whole lot of sense off of what many animal rights activists like this so-called president of dog lovers really wants us to accept. Thank you.